Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my first episode of Beyond the Kitchen Table. You guys know me as Spilling the Sweet Tea. I share amazing Southern recipes and copycat recipes, but for 2026, I wanted to start this YouTube series to have real life conversations beyond the kitchen. I have experienced so many things in my life, and there are important things that I want to share with you guys, not only to educate you, but also maybe inspire you to make changes, do something different, and want something different for your life. So this is the first episode, and this episode is called Legacy Over Leftovers. If something happened to you tomorrow, talking to you, if something happened to you tomorrow, what would your family do? Do you have a plan in place for your young children, right? Who's going to take care of them? What's going to happen to them financially? Is there going to be money to take care of them if you're no longer here, or if you and your spouse are no longer here? So today we're talking about life insurance and trust and why they are non-negotiable. You need both. Baby, I have seen what happens when there is no plan. If you have watched my content before, I've talked about the fact that I grew up in the funeral home industry. My father was a mortician and my mother was a funeral home director. So I went to more funerals than I could count. I went to so many funerals, and I also witnessed how death can divide families. I have witnessed in my personal life how death and money can divide families. So that's why it's so important that not only do you have life insurance, but you also have a trust. Life insurance covers the final expense. I don't know if you have dealt with a loss where you are the person in charge of planning a funeral, but as a daughter of a mortician who grew up in the funeral home industry, baby, it's not cheap. It's very expensive to bury a loved one. Now, cremation is different, but to bury a loved one is extremely expensive. So instead of having GoFundMes and selling fish plates and doing all of these things, have life insurance. It's going to help replace income. It's going to help keep your spouse, your children, your family from spiraling if something were to happen to you. Having life insurance matters not just financially, but also emotionally, right? When I leave this earth, I'm going to rest well, knowing that my daughter is covered, knowing that she will have what she needs. And money is not everything, but baby, it makes the world go round. So I wanted to make sure if something were to happen to me and Kevin together, right? That is the one fear. And it's life. I don't think a lot of people have these conversations because they don't want to have these conversations. But I have had these conversations in my head, and I am prepared if something were to happen. And like I said, life insurance isn't about dying. It's about protecting your family. It's about protecting. Y'all know some people have that mentality. I ain't gonna leave everything. I don't want to leave everybody my money, this, that, and the third. It's about protecting your family beyond the grave. Because I don't think people realize once an income is lost in a household, that can be devastating if you don't have a significant amount of insurance, right? We insure our homes. We insure our phones. We insure our cars. You have to make sure your life is also insured. The person that's holding it together in your family oftentimes is not insured at all, and you want to change that. In 2026, hear me when I say you want to make sure you change that. Life insurance is a form of love through paperwork. That is the best way I can explain it to you. Now let's talk about trust and why they matter. I said earlier, I had a will initially, and then I moved to getting a trust for my family. When I started spilling the sweet tea, I realized I needed a trust. A will was not going to be enough. So in January of 2024, I got my estate plan done. So I live in the state of Maryland. You have to go to an estate planning attorney where you live. But I wanted to make sure I got this done because spilling the sweet tea is something I want to pass on to my daughter. If my daughter does not get in the kitchen and cook a thing after I close my eyes, that is fine with me. But if y'all making my mac and cheese and watching my YouTube videos 20 years from now, and I've gone on to glory and those videos are still making money, baby, I need my baby to be able to cash in. And in order for me to be able to do that, she has to be the beneficiary of the trust and the LLC that I place in the trust. So I don't think people realize, if they've not been through it, how expensive it can be and how long of a process it can be if you don't have a trust in place. A lot of people may have a will, but if you have a will, you have to go to probate. Once again, I'm not an attorney, but this is what I know. You have to go to probate if you have a will. That can be costly and it can also be timely. If you have a trust, you can get through that process much quicker. That's why I feel like it's important that you have a trust. Baby, I don't care if you have a penny with a hole in it. If you have something that you want to pass on, that you worked hard for, that you want to pass on to your family, get you a trust. Make sure you have life insurance. A will says who gets it, right? Like the paintings I got from my mother. My mother said, I want Carlina to have the paintings. But she also had a trust. The trust tells you and why. And like I said, you don't have to go through probate when you have a trust. Trust also allows you to choose guardians. So you can choose a guardian over your child's well-being, and you can also choose a guardian over your child's financial well-being. So somebody could be physically taking care of your child. You can name that person in your trust, but then it could be a separate person that was really good with money to be over their financial well-being. So there's so many different things that you can call out in your trust that you want to make sure happen if you were to leave this earth, especially if you have kids under the age of 18. And I'll just tell you a quick story on what pushed me to make sure I had my affairs in order. I remember years ago watching a news story about several couples who had gone out to celebrate, I think it was a birthday. So there were a group of couples that were friends, and they had rented a limousine to go out on the town and celebrate somebody's birthday. Unfortunately, the limousine malfunctioned. So it was going down some type of hill, and the brakes malfunctioned, and the limousine got into a really bad car accident. Every person in that limousine was killed. Every couple in that limousine was killed, and they all had young children. And when I learned about that story, it really made me realize that I had to make sure I had a plan in place. I want to say my daughter probably at that time was maybe 4 years old. She's almost 11 now. And that's when I got a will. I always had life insurance just because my dad and my mom were also life insurance agents. So they were life insurance agents and morticians and owned a funeral home. So I had life insurance, but I didn't have a will or a trust in place. And I went and got a will shortly after that incident occurred. And I did it for several reasons. For one, I didn't want any piping up, right? Because anybody that knows me personally knows, because of how I grew up and what my parents instilled in me, that I'm insured, right? And I don't need nobody piping up that I do not have a relationship with that happens to be family. Say, oh, that's my niece. I'll take her. I'll make sure I take care of her. No, you won't, because you are not in the documents. I did not want anybody piping up saying they're going to step in and make sure and be a steward over my daughter's funds, and they're not the person that I would have chose. When you pass away and you don't have your affairs in order, the state you live in will determine what happens. So if you have small children, if you're watching this video, you may be watching it because you're supposed to watch it. And this is supposed to inspire you to get your affairs in order. So that's really why it jolted me to make sure I got my affairs in order when it came to having a will. Let me shut down a myth really quickly when it comes to this. You are not too young, okay? You don't have to be wealthy to set this up. And I'll do it later is not the plan. Okay? Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. You may be watching this video because you've had these thoughts, and you are seeing this video because it is a reminder that you need to get these things done in 2026. So don't think you're too young to do this. Don't think that you don't have a lot to leave, so it's no point of you doing that. First of all, you could hit the lottery in the next 6 months, right? You never know how life is going to change. So it's important to have a will and or a trust. To me, a trust is better. So if you're watching this video and you are under the sound of my voice, these are the things I need you to do this week. This is the beginning of a new year, and I think it's important as we go into a new year to and make sure you have everything done that you need to do. So if this is a priority for you, as it should be, okay, I need you to check your life insurance policy. Make sure that the beneficiaries you picked 5 years ago is still the people you want to be beneficiaries today, okay? Because it could change. Make sure your beneficiaries are correct. You have the correct social, the spelling of their name, all of that needs to be done correctly. Schedule a consultation with an estate planning attorney. Okay. Not sure how much consultations cost. I don't believe I paid for my consultation. It was wrapped up in the fee because I moved forward with my trust. I don't remember. I did this 3 years ago, but schedule an estate planning attorney consultation. At least you'll have the information from a licensed professional in regards to the steps that you need to take in your state. Start the conversation at home. It is so important, and it doesn't happen enough. See, if your kids are really young, you don't want to have that conversation. But if you have teenagers or adult children, you need to have this conversation in regards to what happens or what you want to happen if you were to pass away. It is so important. I grew up in the funeral home industry. My daddy and my mom were morticians and funeral home directors. And we did not have enough of these conversations. I wish we could go back and I could have more conversations with them that I did for me to know. You know, it's a lot of guessing. When my died, and then when my mother died, she had a trust in place. But baby, what I went through with that is a whole nother YouTube video. That's a whole Risa Tisa series in regards to that. I don't know if I'll ever tell that story, but I went through a lot. So that's why I really advocate and want to share with people how important it is to have all of these things set up. If this video helped you, please share it with somebody else. There's somebody else out there that needs to hear what I'm saying, because I think it's so important that you protect your if something were to happen to you. And make sure you subscribe. If you love me for my cooking, I think you'll love me for this series as well. We'll talk about navigating grief. We'll talk about caregiving when it comes to someone who has Alzheimer's. We'll talk about, family drama, how to build a food brand, how to self-publish a cookbook. So there'll be different things and topics that I'll be talking about that I've personally been through that I want to share with you guys, that I feel like, to do with cooking or recipes, but just, part of me that I want to share with my community. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time beyond the kitchen table. Have a blessed day.